guys, it is Carl Brown from GuitarLessons365.com. Have an amazing track for you today. We're going to learn how to play Cemetery Gates by Pantera and the great Dimebag Daryl. All right, so before we get into it, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and ring that little notification bell so you'll know when I release a new video, which is quite often. And check out my Guitar Academy too. It's at GuitarLessons365.com. It's the GL365 Academy. It contains all of my guitar courses on guitar technique, improvisation, ear training, theory, all that good stuff. All right, so even if you're a total beginner, I have a course there for you as well. So please check it out. It's GuitarLessons365.com. You'll see the link in the description. All right, so let's get to the track here. Now, as is typical with a lot of Pantera and Dimebag, tuning is a little wonky. So I am just in standard tuning here, so it's going to be should be pretty easy for you to follow along. But the tuning of the actual recording is kind of standard pitch, but a kind of a quarter of a step flat of standard pitch. So it's kind of halfway between half step down and standard pitch. So you can call it half step down, slightly sharp, or standard, that's slightly flat. Either way, if you want to play it along with the recording, it's going to sound a little odd if you don't have some kind of software or you're retuning your guitar to match up with it. All right, so that's just in case you thought it sounded kind of odd. All right, so let's start here. Though we're going to go through every part of the track, minus maybe a couple of the fills and some of the layers. When we get to those sections, I'll just kind of do what the main part. I think if you were just playing this live, what you would do with just one guitar. And there's a whole section of the song that they didn't really do live that they cut out in the beginning. But I'll kind of still show you a version to do there of that as well. All right, so let's start here with the intro. All right, so there is an ending to this that these are kind of the same two things that are repeating. And then there's this little ending that I'll show you too that we can tag on to the end of it. So this starts with just an F sharp minor bar chord. So the picking is just starting from the low E string, just pick all the way across each string to the B. So there's a slight pause there, and then pick the G string. Sorry. All right, this next chord is going to be the open A string, second fret on the D, and fourth fret on the G, and then the open B. So that's the notes. And the picking here is you're going to start from the A string, pick across to the B again, pause once again, and then pick the G and the D. So it is. All right, so for the third chord, it's pretty much the same fingering down in the left hand for the fret hand. The only thing that changes here is instead of the A, open A string being the root note, it's the low E, and everything else stays the same. So all together. All right, and now we're going to go, you can just leave your pinky where it's at. Add the second fret there on the B string. So the notes are going to be open D, fourth fret there on the G, second fret on the B, and the high E string open. So you're just going to pick from the D string. So you're just picking from the D to the G, the B. So pick across to the high E string basically. And then you pick the B and the G again. So hear this. So once you get here, you're going to hit the low E string open. That's going to take you to start over with the pattern. So we have. So a little open E there, and you start over. Now the second time you do the ending, it's like this. So that's a little bit different. It's the same notes, except now you're going to play the D string, then the B and the G, back down to the D. So, and then pick from the first all the way across to the G string. So it's kind of two descending things. And then that open E again. So just those are the two endings, and they just kind of go back and forth between the two here at when the first time you hear it. So this is also, when it comes in with the vocals, it's the verse as well as the song throughout. But when you hear it later in the song, they do those endings a little bit differently, and I'll talk about it there. So all together. So you just repeat from there. Now at the end of it, you're going to hear this little thing. So we were coming from... So that just kind of comes from this. After you're doing that little ending, you're going to jump to this chord, which is the 4th fret on the G, 3rd fret on the B. And slide it up 2 frets, then hit the open D, and then pick those 2 notes again, and slide up. And if you do it like this, they both go to the 7th fret. So from 5 and 6, they both be in 7. Then the open D again, then pick that and slide up 2 frets. And then the last, it's going to be 10 on the B and 11 on the G. All right, now we get to the section of the song that they usually didn't do live. I couldn't really find any videos of them doing it live. Because there's a lot of guitar layers and a lot of stuff going on there, so usually just jump right to the main riff there. But what I'm going to do is still show you what's going on there to a point. I'm going to show you first what the rhythm guitar is doing, and then kind of the main solo part without like the harmonizer and stuff like that. So you can kind of do it if you wanted to. All right, so what's going on underneath that when the guitar solo comes in? It looks like this. Back to the riff that we did just now. All right, so that is based off of an F sharp minor chord. So you're going to play it a little bit differently though, just with this second and the ring finger and the middle finger playing these 2 notes. So you can have this pinky note to do some melody notes on the B string. So the first chord is that F sharp minor with the 5th fret here. It's an F sharp minor 7. So it's 5th fret there on the B string. So strum that once. And then what we're going to do is the picking pattern is going to be E, B, G twice. So this. Then do that, just move the pinky down to the 4th fret and do everything exactly the same. Now I'm going to move the note on the B string down to the 3rd fret. So in order to do that, you're going to have to play the 3rd fret there on the B, and then you can just play the normal F sharp minor chord down here below it. Same pattern after that, and then the regular F sharp minor, same pattern. Repeat. So the second time through, you'll just stop on that F sharp minor and do this little, which is just 4/6 on the G to 5 on the B. And then 2/4 on the A to 2 on the D. And then it's just the chord progression that we looked at the start of the song. All right, so let's take a look at some of the solos. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a kind of leave some stuff out and just play what I think the main notes would be. So it sounds like this. You need some delays too, so make it sound big. So we have this. All right, so those are just what I feel are the most important lines there. So if you wanted to do something there. So it's going to start just the 9th fret on the G, then down to 8, and then the 7. When you get to that 7, then you're going to move to a bend here. I'll cut those delays off. To the, there, kind of at the bend at the 10th fret there on the B string. Whole step bend. Then down to 6 on the G, and then you can do a half step bend for the 9th fret. So this. Now start back over here with the 9 on the G. And the bend after that is going to be the 12th fret whole step bend on the B string. And then down to 8 on the G, and then jump up here and do a step and a half bend at the 14th fret on the B. And then just end it 7, 6, and when you get to that 6, you're just gonna. Now that's, you're gonna have to find where that harmonic's at. For me, it's between the 2 pickups. It's kind of a little bit closer to the neck pickup. All right, so all together that little part. All right, and then from there, a little bit more kind of laid back. All right, so that's just 4th fret there on the D, kind of bend and release to the 4th fret on the G, pull off to 2, over to 2 on the D. Then I'll kind of a little bend and release at the 5th fret on the B string. Kind of a bend there at the 5th fret on the B string. And you're going to jump up and do some double stops here, which is the 14th fret on the B, 12th on the high E, and then just release that to 12 on both strings. Then we have this little final melody. Obviously, a lot of other harmony lines going with that one, but I feel that that's really the main one. So 15, then slide into 17, then 19, 21, and 22. All right, so let's, after that, we are to the main riff of the song. Sounds like this. All right, so kind of like I did at the beginning. All right, so that riff starts with an A power chord, and then just kind of hitting on the A string muted a few times. Now while you're doing that A string hit, jump up here to the 6th fret. You're gonna play 7, 6, 7, 8. And then what you're gonna do is just kind of shift up now to the 7th fret and play 7, 8. And then over to 9 on the D string, and then back 7, 8 on the 8. Now obviously there's a lot of pinch harmonics that he's adding to these notes, which you can just kind of freely do. And then back. So far. And back with the A power chord. And then the first half of the riff is the same. Like that, the first few notes. First 4 notes. And then it varies a little bit. It goes 6, 7, so you don't shift up to the 7th fret this time. You go 6, 7 on the A, 8 on the low E, over to 6 on the A, and over to 7 on the low E. All right, so that's kind of one complete time through the riff. So. the third time I'm playing this riff, there's going to be, we jump to that next section, and where you time it to where it comes in, the riff starts the same. So this ending here, that third time I'm playing through the riff, when it gets to that 8th fret there on the low E string, that's when you're going to jump into the next riff. All right, so that just starts with a just open E power chord, 1st fret power chord, and then we get to the 2nd fret power chord, the F sharp power chord. So that's the 2nd fret power chord, then the open A, the B power chord here at the 2nd fret, and then the C power chord, and then back. So when you get up here to the 6th fret, the 2nd fret there. So it's mostly muted hits, just with some accents there on the chords. Obviously, if you're playing this Pantera, you don't need me to tell you the pattern of the rhythm. I'm just showing you the notes, and then it's pretty easy to follow. So after you come around, second time, those two are really heavily palm muted. And then it's the same way again. All right, so then we get to the verse again, and now I'm going to talk about those little slight variations. So it's pretty much the same thing again. But that first ending we did, how it's done for pretty much the rest of the song, when you hear the verse, we have that first ending is actually played as the first two endings. So that's played each time the riff is ending for 2 times. So the first time, and then the second time as well. Again. And then the other ending, which was descending, will happen the next 2 times. So it kind of, instead of going one back and forth between the other, it does that first ending twice and then the second ending twice. Now, when you're also hearing the second ending, you're hearing, when you're hearing that second ending, you're going to be hearing the big scrape and the pre-chorus coming in. So you might just jump to that. So now let's look at this pre-chorus. All right, so this is pretty easy. We're kind of start with the open E real quick to the F sharp power chord. And then we have this little lick that we do between each chord, sliding into the 4th fret of the A over to 2nd fret on the G. And then that takes us to the A power chord. Do that same lick again to an E power chord. That same lick again. And then we're going to move up here to the 5th fret power chord, the D power chord off the A string. And then just leave the note on the D string there, just move this back 1 fret to the 4th fret on the A. And start over. All right, so you just do that a few times, and then the last time playing it, so it starts with the same 2 chords of your 1, 2, 3, kind of palm muted hits, and then down to that 4th fret, and then just move everything up 1 string, hit that twice, then up to the A power chord. And then we're to the chorus, which is that main riff that we did earlier. It's just basically played a little bit shorter the first time you play that chorus. All right, so let's just kind of jump straight to that power chord riff, back into the same verse that we did, the clean verse, and back into the same pre-chorus. So now we're at the second chorus, and there's a slight variation in the guitar riff, but see if you can pick it up. It looks like this. So it's pretty obvious what I just did there. So basically when you're going through the riff and you play it normal the one time through, and the second time, you have this. When you get that last note, you hold it and kind of just do some slow bends on it without going back down to that A power chord and chugging on the open A string. So it just kind of goes until you get to that part of the riff. So that's really the only kind of difference there. Now coming out of that second chorus, we have a riff that happens real briefly. It looks like this. All right, so that's the A. That leads us into the solo. So we have the A power chord, and then the low E power chord, and then the first fret power chord. So really heavily palm muted. Each one hit once. So we did that twice, and then two more times, but we're gonna hit the A twice each time. So, and that takes us to Dimebag's solo. So I'm gonna play through the solo real quick for you, and then I'll show you how to play it phrase by phrase. So here we go. All right, so that's just a killer solo. And the cool thing about Dimebag a lot is he did the solos the same way live. So they're obviously like composed solos. And it's just some of the coolest stuff in here ever. Man, he was the greatest. So let's start here. I'm going to cut the delay off there. So that is going to start here at the second fret on the B string, and you're going to kind of do a little bar dip into it. So depress the bar slightly before you play the note, and then release it so it kind of goes long into the note. Then hammer 3, 5, and then you can slide into 7, and when you slide into the 7, you can do that same little bar dip there too. Pull off to 5, 3, back down to 2. And then we're gonna have, as you're playing that, you're gonna play 5 over on the high E, back down to that 2 on the B, and then you can play 5 on the high E again, and 4. And you can let these two notes ring. And then slide up to the 5th fret there on the B, up to the 5th fret, and play 9 on the G on the high E, and just play that a couple times. So, look. Next phrase. So that's sliding into the 9th fret on the B string, up to the 12th fret on the high E string, back down to 9 on the B, and then 10 on the high E. And then you're going to pull off 10 to 9 on the high E, over to 12 on the B, back to that 9 on the high E, and then 10 on the B. And then 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 6, 7. So it kind of staccato, little chromatic lick down the B string. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and then 5, 6, 7. All right, from there we have this. So that's 7 on the high E string, over to 7 on the B string. So go back and forth between those two notes twice. And when you get to that B string the second time, do a long, slow bend. And then you're going to play the 7 on the high E again, into, once again, another bend on the B string. And while you do that, now you're going to grab the 8th fret with your pinky, release, and pull off to the 5th fret there. So it's kind of a... cool little lick there. So from there is where we start to kind of speed up a little bit. So let me play up where kind of the first speed patterns here. It looks like this. All right, so this part, you're going to slide into the 9th fret. And there's actual patterns here he's playing, so it's not hard to kind of memorize. It's not like a random collection of notes he's playing here. So we play 9, 10, 12 on the B, hammer on. And then same thing on the high E. Pull back off to 9, all the way down to 9. And then over to 12 on the B, then we're going to go back up. So we have this. All right, now here is where we actually start the pattern. Now here, what you're going to do is from this 12th fret, you're going to slide up into the 14th fret. Now when you slide up, whenever you slide into a note here in this little series of 3 patterns, when you slide into the note, you can slightly play it a little bit longer. You don't immediately go into the rest of the lick. So I kind of paused on the top note and then did the rest of the lick. So the actual lick you're going to be doing is this. So like that. So you're going to play the 14, pull off to 12 and 10, then hammer back 14, pull off to 10, hammer back to 14. So from there, you're going to take the lick and you're going to repeat it 2 frets higher. So now he does a slightly different thing there. So it's the same pattern here. Right? Remember, slide, when you slide, pause on it a little bit. Now, we could do the exact same thing here. But what he does here, for some reason, I don't know if it's intentional or whatever, he does the pattern the same way, the first 3 notes, but then he goes, you can hear the, it's probably just that he let his pinky come back a fret to the 15th. So, you know, it probably sounds, the note's not in the key, but it's there on the recording, but it goes by so fast you can't really hear it. So if you wanted to do it exactly like him, you'd have to do it like this. So it's kind of like, do the thing, and then you're going to pull off from 15 to 12, and then hammer back down and slide. You hammer back down to 16 and slide into the 17th fret. Or you can just, so it sounds fine either way. Then when you get to 17, you can do that same pattern, but here between 17, 16, and 14. And then you're gonna slide into the 21st fret. So that pattern was done 3 times. And then you can slide up to the 21st fret. You're gonna pull off 21 to 17, over to 19 on the B, and then back to that 17, and then back to that 19. And then the same pattern we did there, but different notes. We're going to pull off 19 to 16 on the high E, over to 17 on the B. So do it twice like we did before. That's the way it is. All right, now from there we get to this little chromatic lick that looks like this. All right, so that's just straight chromatic line starting from the 12th fret on the low E string. So 12, 13, 14, 15, kind of heavily palm muted. And then starting from the 11th fret, just 4 frets in a row off the A string. Now, from the 13th fret of the A string, same thing, 4 frets in a row. And then over on the 13th fret of the D, 4 frets in a row. And then we're going to jump over to the double stops between the B string and the G string at the 14th fret. I'm going to hit those 3 times. All right, then we get to the part of the solo where the rhythm guitar part goes. And we have this as our first lick. All right, so kind of a bluesy thing there. So it's a standard blues lick, bending at the 16th fret there on the G string, then 14 on the B, roll into 14 on the high E, and then pull off 17 to 14 on the B. So we have this. So do that like 4 times. And then we're gonna play the bending at the 17th fret. After you've done that like 3 or 4 times, you're gonna bend at the 17th fret on the B string and play 14 on the high E. Do that a few times. And that sets up this really cool lick that looks like this. All right, so that's a big stretch. We're gonna be pulling off 21 to 14. So it kind of sounds like you can just pick the note, pick the top note, then pick it again, and then pull off. So do that a few times. And then do it from the 20th fret as the top note. And then he plays this next lick like this. You can use whatever fingers you want, but he plays the 19th fret, slides up to 20, back down to 19. Pull off to 17, pull off to 14. So we have this. And then he does that twice, and then resolves it to the 19th fret there on the B string. You can play that with these fingers. But he just kind of chose to do it like this. So whatever way you want. All right, from there we have kind of a legato lick that he kind of does his own little kind of stock legato style thing, but I'm going to really kind of show you the notes. But getting it note for note is a little bit hairy. So it looks like. So we have something like that. So let me just show you the notes first, and then you can kind of do your own little legato-y thing like he does, which is not like, there's not really a pattern to it. So it's kind of between 14, 16, 17 on the high E. You can slide into it with the 17th fret on the B. So you do it between those notes, and then you between 19, 17, and 14. So you kind of slides into that 19. And then take that over to the B string. And then, so we have this. And then kind of a little trill there between 15 and 14 on the B string. And then kind of like a little blues scale on the way down. 17, 16, 14 on the G. Kind of pull off and resolve it there at that 16th fret on the D. So you can just kind of put those collection of notes together however you really want. All right, now from there, he just does this little legato thing to end this solo. So that is just playing, start at 14th fret and do kind of hammer 16, pull back off to 14, slide down a fret and do it again. And every time he does that, he does a little bar dip with it. He like shifts frets. until he gets down to about the 5th fret, and then we have that harmonic. He jumps down to the 2nd fret here. And so you play the 2nd fret on the G string, and that harmonic is over my neck pickup, about a little, not quite halfway in the middle, just to the right of the middle of it. So wherever it is on yours, could be anywhere. All right, so then we get to the this riff that happens just coming out of the solo. It looks like this. And back to the chorus. All right, so the chords there. 2nd fret power chord, A of the low E, open A power chord, B, C power chord. So it's got a little bit more of a gallop feel to it. I'm sure I don't need to work out the exact pattern for you. If, like I said, if you made it this far through the song, you don't need me to work out strumming patterns for you. But so those are just the chords that he's doing. Dun, digga, dun, dun, digga, dun, dun, digga, dun, dun. So. And then the 2nd time through, we just go to 3, 2, 0, kind of heavily palmated. And then start over. And then the 2nd time through it, you're going to go to that 3, 2, 0 twice. And then we're back to the main riff. So that's that same chorus with that little variation that we did where you're kind of holding that B note in it. And then coming out of that, jumping out of that chorus, just getting to that final section, we have pretty much that riff that went into the solo, that took us into the solo, that quick little riff, just the first half of it. Just have those 3 hits done twice. And then we're back to the main riff again where these harmonic squeals happen. So let's talk about these squeals real quick. Now my guitar is not set up to be able to do exactly what he's doing. He had his guitar set up to where he could raise the pitch 2.5 steps. Mine won't do that. But what I can do is I can kind of show you a couple of ways of playing this, but I can show you the exact frets that he's doing it on, which is the most important thing. And then if you have your guitar set up for this, you'll be able to kind of match that pitch with the bar. So first, let's talk about the frets where this is happening before we get into the technique of it. So first you want to do is you want to mute the strings. You're going to want to really mute the low E, the bottom 3 strings. He does it with his thumb coming over the top, and then the index finger mutes the B and the G string, so, the B and the high E, because all the harmonics happen on the G string here. So what we're doing here is that we're going to depress the bar a little bit, just a little bit, and then you're going to pick the string. Now this is the easy way to do it, not the exact way he actually performed the harmonic, and I'll talk about that in a second. But an easy way of doing it is muting these outside strings, and just on the G string, place your middle finger over the 4th fret and slightly depress the string. And what you do is you pick that note and then let the bar come back up. And then he liked to have his bar this way, so it was pointed backwards. And that's why he had to do the harmonics a different way, because it took his picking hand away from the strings. But he could control the pitch better with it. So he could, with it back here, and he could push down to make the pitch go up, instead of having to pull up on it if you had the bar normal. But I'm going to keep it normal because I'm going to pick the notes. So it's the 4th fret you're going to pick. Go, kind of slight depress it. And that first one, he pulls it all the way 2.5 steps sharp, and then lowers that note down just 2 steps. So it kind of stays, doesn't come all the way back down to the flat. And that note goes. He doesn't come all the way back down, so you got to use your ear there. And then we do that same process with the harmonic at. Now these next harmonics happen between the 2nd and 3rd fret. It's kind of his favorite spot to really get these high harmonics. And the first one, so now the second harmonic that you're going to hear, the first one that we just did was at the 4th fret. That's where in the song. And at about the 2.6, 2.7, about 2/3 of the way from the 2nd fret to the 3rd fret is where that next harmonic happens. And once again, slight bar dive. And you're going to get that little, kind of get the right string. All right, the next one is going to happen in the same fret, but you're going to back up a little bit, get closer to the 2nd fret, so it's at about like 2.3. And from there, you're going to do the same thing. It's the same, the first time he plays that, so that's the 3rd harmonic, he pulls the bar up a whole step. And then he plays that same harmonic again, but this time pulls it up the full 2.5 steps, and that's the big one at the end, which I'm not going to do, I'll break my strings. All right, so the harmonics are at the 4th, then 2.6 or 2.7, and then 2.3 twice in a row. And you're going to be always coming into it from a little bit slack string. So, and then, all right, so it's really cool, obviously, when you get it together. Now, how did he actually do it? He had his bar like this, so he couldn't pick the notes. What he did is he did the muting, and then he would actually flick the string with, you depress the bar, flick the string with his middle finger, and came back down on the harmonic with the same finger. It's a lot trickier than picking them. All right, so that's the actual technique that he plays. It's tricky though. It's not something that I've mastered in the least. I don't really play that kind of technique. So I make it easy on myself, and I don't mind bending the bar back like this. So I would pick it. But Dimebag was very good at this and had a great touch, and he obviously worked on it a lot to be able to get those harmonics just perfect and be able to put his bar back like that. All right, so play it however way you want, but at least we know where the frets are at and the technique. You get a bar depressed a little bit and then leading into that and then pull it all the way up to try to match the pitch on the recording. And if you do it, sounds pretty killer. All right, so but you have to have a guitar that's set up for it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this in-depth breakdown of Cemetery Gates. It's like another classic from, I think, the all-time greatest metal guitarist ever. I wish he was still around, man. He was just killer. Anyway, so I'll see you guys again soon for GuitarLessons365.com.